Om Jnana-timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. This knowledge is the king of education, the most secret of all secrets. It is the purest knowledge, and because it gives direct perception of the self by realization, it is the perfection of religion. It is everlasting and it is joyfully performed. As the purport to this verse is long in comparison to most of the other purports. It's, let's see, it's about just over just over 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, a little over 5 pages long. I'm just going to read selections from it as the time for this class is limited. I particularly wanted to speak on the some of the topics that Srila Prabhupada raises here in the purport in a discussion that I had a few days ago when, in the company of several senior devotees, I stated that we need to have, I've stated this several times, we need to have some devotees who are very deeply educated in Shastra and various philosophies, and I mentioned that I saw the whole crux of our Krishna conscious understanding depending on the principle of Veda Paurushayatva or Veda Nityatva, that the Vedas are eternal and they're not composed by any person. And one of the devotees there said that, well, it's not really that important because for our general preaching it doesn't matter. And then there are other points that I mentioned, that the different persons are already... we had some discussion that there are already people who are taking up these issues. These are traditional issues. The Buddhists and the Jains have attacked the principle, philosophically attached the principle of Ved Paurushayatva, and skeptics or they just don't take it seriously. They say, well, it must have been written by... It's written, so it must have been written by a person. It can't be eternal because nothing in this world is eternal. Well, that's the whole point. The Vedas are not of this world. But persons who are materialists, they only believe in matter and various theories such as the Big Bang theory. Once upon a time there was nothing, and then there was a big explosion. And everything fell into place perfectly, and here we are today. So people who believe in this, and there are many people who believe in this. It's taught in the schools. They won't accept the concept of Veda Paurushayatva. But then this devotee said, well, anyway, there may be... Oh yeah, and then there are people attacking us saying... for instance, from the Madhva Sampradaya saying our philosophy is not Vedic, or our there may be others even from within the Gauriya Sampradaya who say our parampara is not bona fide. So there are actually many, many points, if we get into the details of the philosophy, which require substantiating, but this devotee said, anyway, for our day-to-day regular preaching we don't need that, and even if these people are attacking us, then what does it matter? Let them go on. So, all right, let's read the purport. Anyway, no, before I get into the purport, I'll say that, but our whole point, when we speak to others, what about the authenticity of Krishna consciousness, we say, that it's derived from the Vedas. The Vedas are authoritative. It has to be accepted axiomatically. So if someone comes along and attacks that, no, it's not. The Vedas is just something made up by someone, different people. We don't know who they are, but it must have been written by someone. Or someone else comes and says, yeah, we accept the Vedas, but your interpretation of it is wrong. They may only be a few people who say that, but that will create doubts in the minds of all our devotees. If we say this is the Vedic path and someone else comes along who's quoting the Vedas and apparently much more learned than us, and says it's not the Vedas, the Vedic path is something different, or maybe impersonalism. So, such Purva Pakshins, or philosophical opponents, they may create doubts in the minds of devotees who may therefore go on with Krishna consciousness not wanting to think about it too much, which is not a very strong platform. Then that means they come onto the platform of blind faith. Or it may be that by speaking in such a way that persons actually, those who speak in such a way, if we're not able to give a suitable reply, that people may join their camp, leaving our camp. We've seen that already in various ways, not particularly on the issue of Veda Paurushayatva. So, I'll read from Srila Prabhupada's purport. This chapter of Bhagavad-gita is called the King of Education because it is the essence of all doctrines and philosophies explained before. Among the principal philosophies in India are philosophers in India are Gautam Kanad, Kapila, Yajnavalkya, Shandilya, and Vaishvanara. This is the only mention of Vaishvanara, the philosopher, that I'm aware of. Not so very well known. At least I haven't heard of him, as if that's anything to go by. And finally there is Vyasadeva, the author of the Vedanta Sutras. So there is no dearth of knowledge in the field of philosophy or transcendental knowledge. Now the Lord says that this 9th chapter is the king of all such knowledge, the essence of all knowledge that can be derived from the study of the Vedas and different kinds of philosophy. It is the most confidential because confidential or transcendental knowledge involves understanding the difference between the soul and the body, and the king of all confidential knowledge culminates in devotional service. So in these last 2 sentences, Srila Prabhupada summarizes what is confidential knowledge. It begins with understanding the difference with the soul and the body, and it culminates in devotional service. And everything in between is transcendental knowledge. So that's the subject of Bhagavad-gita, if understood as it is, theistically. Srila Prabhupada continues, generally people are not educated in this confidential knowledge, they are educated in external knowledge. As far as ordinary education is concerned, people are involved with so many departments: politics, sociology, physics, chemistry, mathematics, astronomy, engineering, etc. There are so many departments of knowledge all over the world and many huge universities, but there is, unfortunately, no university or educational institution where the science of the spirit soul is instructed. Yet the soul is the most important part of the body. Without the presence of the soul, the body has no value. Still, people are placing great stress on the bodily necessities of life, not caring for the vital soul. So Srila Prabhupada writes here that it is unfortunate that there is no university or educational institution where the science of the spirit soul is instructed. So indirectly he's stating that there should be such educational institutions. And actually, as I remember hearing in 1976 or 1977, when Srila Prabhupada went to Kurukshetra, he stated that he wanted a university there. By that means a Vaishnava university. I think there's already mundane university there, but that's useless or worse. So he wanted a Krishna conscious university there. Now going on in this purport, I'm skipping some of it here. Srila Prabhupada describes about Narad Muni in his previous life as a young boy who took the remnants of the Bhakti Vedantas. Srila Prabhupada writes about Narada. Narada was actually a son of a maidservant. He had no opportunity to go to school. He was simply assisting his mother. Unfortunately, his mother rendered some service to the devotees. The child Narada also got the opportunity and simply by association achieved the highest goal of all religion. The highest goal of all religion is devotional service, as stated in Srimad Bhagavatam. Savai pungsang paro dharmo yato bhaktir adhokshaje. Religious people generally do not know that the highest perfection of religion is the attainment of devotional service. As we have already discussed in regard to the last verse of chapter 8, Vedeshu yagyeshu tapassu chaiva. Generally, Vedic knowledge is required for self-realization. But here, although Narad never went to the school of the spiritual master and was not educated in the Vedic principles, he acquired the highest results of Vedic study. The highest results of Vedic study. This process is so potent that even without performing the religious process regularly, one can be raised to the highest perfection. How is this possible? This is also confirmed in the Vedic literature. Acharyavan Purusho Veda. One who is in association with great acharyas, even if he is not educated or has never studied the Vedas, can become familiar with all the knowledge necessary for realization. So there seem to be different currents of ideas here. Given the example of Narada, even without education, one can become familiar with all the knowledge necessary for realization. And here, prior to this, Srila Prabhupada has indicated that there should be universities and educational institutions for inculcating or teaching knowledge of the spiritual knowledge. So both points are there. Spiritual education is required. Srila Prabhupada writes that by coming in association with an acharya, one can get all the knowledge necessary for self-realization. For that purpose, one goes to an acharya. Tad vijnanartam sagurum eva abhigachet. For the purpose, tat vijnana, that knowledge, that scientific knowledge which is beyond the knowledge of punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam, punarapi janani jatare shayanam, beyond the knowledge of this material world which is characterized by repeated birth and death, to get that knowledge, for the purpose of attaining such knowledge, one must approach a guru. Guru being a synonym of acharya. Now, persons who perform the Vedic principles for the sake of elevation to heavenly planets, what is that? What is that verse? Trividya punya gata gatam kama kama labante. What is that verse? Trividya mam somapa puttapa pa swarga micha. What is it? Now I'm missing it. Yagyairištva swargatim prartayante. Te punya asaja surendra loka gata gatam kama kama labhante. persons who perform the Vedic processes for elevation to the heavenly planets are aware that there is repeated birth and death. So it's simply to understand that the soul is different from the body is a beginning, but it doesn't elevate one beyond the platform of a materialist. Generally, religious people are those who believe in an afterlife. One may be atheistic and believe in an afterlife also, as in the case of Buddhists, although their understanding of an afterlife, due to their non-acceptance of the existence of the soul, is a very convoluted kind of philosophy of different attempted explanations of how there can be a reincarnation without the existence of a soul. But the knowledge of how we go from body to body, or of how we exist in future lives, without that one is a fool. Utkramantang stitang vapi bhunjanam vagunanvitam vimurha nanu pashanti jnana chakshushaha. How the living being becomes situated in various bodies, enjoying and suffering under the influence of the three modes of material nature, is not seen by foolish people, but those who have the eye of knowledge can see. But one cannot get knowledge unless one approaches an acharya. Now here the term acharya must mean an acharya not on the category of Shukracharya, who is also teaching Vedic knowledge. He's also called acharya, but he's teaching how to enjoy in the world. So you see, there are many religionists who believe in a future life, at least theoretically, but they're very much attached to their present circumstances and bodies. For instance, if one is a Christian and believes that he's going to live forever in heaven, then why should he bother very much about this world at all? Or a Hindu or whatever. But we find that people are very much attached to their present situation. They must be, due to lack of proper spiritual knowledge. Because they don't clearly understand the difference between the soul and the body, they identify their present situation with themselves, to be my very self, and they give great seriousness to it. Actually, whatever religious path one may be in, if one is a Christian or Muslim or whatever, Buddhist even, if one understands that there is eternity, this vision of eternity, Srila Prabhupada uses this term in a translation of one verse in the 13th chapter. If we have the vision of eternity, why should we be bothered about this life at all? Why should we put great importance on getting money and living comfortably? Why should we bother? We should be concerned for the eternal existence, which is going to ensue very soon after our forthcoming death, or the death of this body. But this spiritual education is not there. Therefore, one should approach an acharya. Now, here it's stated in the case of Narada that he associated with such great saintly persons, and therefore he became imbued with all knowledge. Presumably the great saintly persons had also been educated. They were called Bhakti Vedantas, those who have understood the conclusion of Vedic knowledge to be bhakti, devotional service to Krishna. But then Narada, in his next life, he did approach an acharya for knowledge. in a future life. He approached Brahma and was instructed by him, and Brahma was instructed by the Supreme Lord Krishna directly. So one can get all the knowledge necessary for realization simply by associating with devotees. That is a fact. The basic knowledge is not difficult to understand. We are eternal spiritual beings. This material world is not meant for our enjoyment. We are meant for selfless service to Krishna, to live with Krishna eternally in the spiritual world. So the basic philosophy is not difficult to understand. More education than this is generally required. Otherwise we may be diverted by, for instance, impersonalism. And for deeper knowledge that may also be required. Just like we find the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, they went, on the order of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they very deeply went into Shastra. And especially Jiva Goswami wrote his Sandarbha, Shat Sandarbha, in a manner to already understanding what the various objections may be to the Gauriya position and rebutting them in advance. Because it may be someone is studying for years and years, and then they find something which someone says and they become diverted. That may be. Their faith may be shaken if they don't have very deep faith. Now, deep faith can come even without deep knowledge, and that kind of faith is better than being highly knowledgeable. Just recently in Bangalore, I met with one of the most famous Vaishnav scholars present in the world today. It means, at least among Vaishnavas here in South India, is very famous, this Lakshmi Tatacharya. And so he recounted an anecdote from the life of Sri Parashara Bhatta. I'm regularly reading this Vishnu Sahasranama with the commentary of Parashara Bhatta, a great Acharya, famous Acharya in the line of Sri Ramanuja Acharya, which Lakshmi Tatacharya is also in. So he recounted an anecdote that Sri Parashara Bhatta was regularly giving discourses, and many people would gather to hear. Among them was one great scholar, Chaturvedi. And another one who regularly attended was an seemingly uneducated person who had no means. He would subsist by begging. So he seemed to be both intellectually and economically indigent, poverty-stricken. But Sri Parashara Bhatta, whenever this beggar-type person would enter the assembly, he would especially welcome him. And when that beggar-type person left, then Parashara Bhatta would also very courteously and politely escort him from the assembly place. But he gave no particular importance to the great famous scholar, and in fact he practically ignored him. His disciples asked him about this one. So why this great scholar, generally as Chanakya says, Vidvan sarvatra pujyate, a learned person is respected everywhere, But you're not giving him any respect, and you're giving so much respect to this beggar who's not at all very learned. So Ramanuja said, all right, I'll just wait. Give a little time. I'll demonstrate why. So one time, this Chaturvedi came to the assembly prior to the beggar coming. And Parasha Bhatta asked this great scholar, so what is the meaning of Brahma? So the scholar said, well, according to this sampradaya it means this, and according to this acharya it means this, and according to another acharya it means this, and according to another acharya it means this, and these are different ways Brahma has been interpreted. Okay. Then, after a short time, this beggar person came, and Parasha Bhatta, after welcoming him politely, asked him, can you tell me what is the meaning of Brahma? And this beggar person, he became very indignant and said, what? You're giving lectures and you don't know that Brahma is Narayana? I'm never going to come and hear you again. And he left. So without going very deeply into arguing all the different points, the indigent devotee, or seemingly indigent devotee, was firmly convinced that Brahma, the supreme reality, is Narayana. Whereas the great scholar had fallen into the trap of scholarship, that you just go round and round like a dog chasing its tail and never come to any conclusion. Therefore, Siddhanta is a very important term. Bhakti Siddhanta. Bhakti is the Siddhanta, and what is the Siddhanta of Bhakti? You see, the impersonalists, they also read Bhagavad-gita. They also see the word Bhakti is there so many times, but their understanding of the term Bhakti is quite different, because they a priori assume that Brahma is impersonal. And so Bhakti for them is like any other process. It's some kind of mental, or in this case emotional jugglery. It has no actual substance in itself. Whereas the Vaishnavas understand that Bhakti is, that's the only thing of any substance for the jiva. Substance means that which is reality. Vedyam vastavam atra vastu. That which is actually real is Narayana, Krishna, and devotional service to Him. But for the impersonalists, only the what they call indefinable Brahman is real. And so they read the term Bhakti, but they have no devotion. They may even have some show of devotion, but it can't be real devotion, because they don't actually accept that there's any person to be devoted to. So this Siddhanta, Bhakti Siddhanta. Now someone may have very deep faith that yes, this is correct. That's all right, but then that has to be established in the world. Why that is correct. That verse we quoted yesterday. Rishabhe bahuda gitam chando bheve vidhai pritak. Brahma Sutra padais chaiva hetumad bheve nischitai. This should be established. What is the ultimate cause? Citing all previous rishis, citing the Vedic mantras, citing the Brahma Sutra, which is the summation of all the Vedic knowledge. That should be done. That is a service to Krishna. So many great previous acharyas have done that. Now I may say, well, there's no need for it, just chant Hare Krishna. Well, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did that for the general populace, but for others, he would go and discuss. He discussed the Vedic knowledge in great detail over 7 days with Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. He discussed in great detail with Prakashananda Saraswati. He discussed in South India. It's not described exactly, but there is a whole list of different people that he met with, and he philosophically defeated them. Some of them were the Sri Vaishnavas, Tattvavadis, Buddhists, Mimamsakas, which means like Smartas, Charava, all different kinds he met with. And on the basis of Vedic knowledge, defeated all of them. Even the Buddhists, they won't accept Vedic knowledge, so he spoke with them and defeated them also. So that is required. For most people, for preaching, chant Hare Krishna and be happy. And give some knowledge also. Otherwise, it's not that everyone's going to have such very deep faith, that they just completely commit themselves to Krishna consciousness. Most people, not only in this life, but in previous lives also, have been bombarded with all kinds of wrong ideas. So they have to be corrected. Otherwise, our commitment to Krishna consciousness won't be very strong. And it can be shaken. And at any time. So it is required that some devotees become very deeply understanding of all these points. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada wanted to create a class of brahmanas who are spiritual leaders. Srila Prabhupada decried the process of making someone a brahmana just by putting a thread on their body, as is the practice in what are called Brahmin families, usually just before the wedding, because they have to be inducted as a brahmana before they can marry, so they do it just before the wedding. So Srila Prabhupada, it's not brahmana, it's something, it's just like stamping you see the cows, they put a brand on them. So it's something like that. You're just putting a brand. Okay, this is my cow. This cow belongs to me. So put a thread on someone. So putting a thread on someone, that's relatively, well, that is easy. It's not a difficult thing to do if they're willing to accept it. But to actually train them as a brahmana, that means they should be deeply absorbed in Shastra and able to rebut all false ideas. That means they should have some knowledge of those ideas, and not just knowledge of them, but be able to understand what are the weak points and what are the strong points. Otherwise, there was an ancient Greek philosopher, sophist, from which we get the term sophistry. What is his name? Protagus, something like that, from which we get the word protagonist. So he claimed that he was so good in rhetoric that he could take the wrong position and argue with someone who had the right position and defeat them. He was confident. Okay, we know what is right and we know what is wrong. Philosophically, you give me the wrong position, I'll defeat him. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to do that in his youth also. He had come up to someone in his scholarly pastimes, and he'd say, okay, tell me something, what have you learned? And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would defeat that, whatever he said, And the person say, "Oh, yeah, you're very intelligent." And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would say, "No, actually what I said was wrong." And then he'd defeat his own proposition and establish what the person had originally said. And in this way he would show himself to be far, far superior, in a different league altogether to others. But what is the use of that? That's simply intellectual sense gratification. That we're not interested in. Intellectual sense gratification will not lead us to Krishna. That will give some sense of smugness, pride, which will lead us away from Krishna. So, even when studying, we should know that we're completely dependent upon the mercy of Guru and Krishna. If I know something, or if I have some intelligence more than others, maybe a little bit more. That's all the mercy of Krishna. Divya Gyan Hriday Prakashita. We may learn so many things, but that will only become activated within our hearts by the mercy of Guru. So we're running on mercy. This should be understood. Not that, now I learn so many things, and now I'm become a great scholar, and I'm better than everyone else. If anyone thinks I'm better than anyone else, then all his learning is useless. Completely useless. So this point to be understood, as in the case of Narada, his previous life, he got the mercy of the Bhakti Vedantas, and therefore he was able to come to a greatly advanced position in devotional service. The Bhakti Vedantas went away after the 4 months of the rainy season. His mother died, he was a young boy, and he took that as an opportunity to search out Krishna, to engage in devotional service. Otherwise he could have got some job going on cleaning pots and cleaning plates, but he thought, now let me find Krishna. He searched for Krishna, and Krishna came to him. So this mercy is required, but on the other hand, we shouldn't think, it's just mercy, and then don't bother with anything else. Then no need to study anything, no need to follow any rules. Rules are also required. We approach the Acharya, and by the Acharya's mercy, we can make progress in devotional service. But the Acharya also teaches us what is the proper understanding. Absolute is sentient. He teaches us the proper understanding of the personality of Godhead, and also teaches us the rules and regulations which help us to advance in devotional life. So ultimately we're depending on mercy. The rules and regulations are also required. But if by following rules and regulations we start to think, I'm better than others, or we are better, we follow rules, but we're better than others, then again we miss the point. Ultimately we depend on mercy. That's a fact. But it's the mercy of the Lord and His devotees that they teach us who is Krishna, what is our relationship with Krishna, how to act in that relationship. And great mercy, that we have actually received that mercy, the symptom will be that we are fully appreciative of that. And that even while performing various services, we understand that this is only by the mercy of the Lord I'm engaged in this service. Otherwise, if someone thinks, I could have been, I could have been this, or I could have been a great politician, or I could have had a great career, but I left it. You should realize that you're fortunate that I'm a devotee. I'm here among you all. You don't think I'm something small just because I'm so humble. You should know, I'm from a very elevated Brahmin family. Anyone who thinks like this misses the whole point. even if they are very learned. So, depending on mercy, at the same time following the rules. You may think, well, why follow the rules if it's all dependent on mercy? Well, that's the mercy that we're given, the process by which we can follow. And to have this ultimate humility in the service of the Lord. Humility, showy humility, is not required. But the actual humility of understanding that I am simply dependent on the mercy of the Lord and His devotees, and I must execute their order. And if to me has come the service of deeply studying Shastra for the sake of establishing religious principles, Nana Shastra Vicharanaika Nipuno Sadharma Samsthapako, just like the 6 Goswamis, that is my service. And someone else's service is to clean the floor in the temple. One shouldn't think, well, I'm in a better position. Or even if one thinks that I've been given some service to do, some service which appears to be somewhat outstanding, one should think that it's simply the mercy of Hari, Guru and Vaishnava. One shouldn't think that I have some particular qualification. Or, as Srila Prabhupada said, my only qualification is that I had complete faith in the words of my spiritual master. So faith is required. Learning is also required. Not for everyone, especially if they're going to take the position of a Brahmana, they should know very well what are the teachings of Shastra. But it's not required that everybody be very deeply learned in Shastra, but some should be. It's a specialized service. Just like them in a community of devotees, a few may be Brahmanas, a few may be electricians. That's also a specialized service. I know at, I'm not sure if now, but previously at ISKCON Baroda, there was full-time employee for electrical work, just because there's always something to do. Electrical work and then basic mechanics and this and that, because there's always something to repair when you have a big institution. So it's a specialized service. May not be as prestigious as sitting on the Vyasa Sun and giving lectures, but it's another specialization. The big Acharya, when he needs some electrical work done, then he has to call the electrician, and he becomes dependent on the electrician. So Varnashram is like that. Human society, everyone is interacting, everyone takes service from everyone else. The Acharya gives the best service by instructing about Krishna, but he can actually be the Acharya by understanding what he has to teach everyone else. That we are all das anudas 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 anudas, servant of the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant. Hare Krishna. Any question about this, please? Yes, please. Three levels of devotees are described in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Jaha Komal Shraddha Shekha Nishtajan, who has pliable faith, is Kanishta, or lowest level devotee. Then second level devotee, Jaha Shriddha, Jaha Dridha Shraddha, who has got firm faith. He's called Madhyamadikari. Shastra Jukte Anipun, but he's not very expert in understanding the teachings of Shastra. Shastra Jukte Nahi Jani. He doesn't know how to harmonize all the statements of Shastra and establish the principle. And the Uttamadhikari is Shastra Jukjay Shunipun Drira Shadaja Uttamadhikari She Taraye Sangsha. And topmost devotee is one who is expert in Shastra Yukti. Yukti can mean debate, or it can mean harmonizing. Such one who is expert in that and who has firm faith. If one is simply expert in Shastra but doesn't really believe it, then he's not a topmost devotee. There may be scholars in the university who are expert in describing the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, but they don't believe it. For them it's just something to study. Like some people study frogs and they study Vaishnava philosophy. So one who has firm faith and is able to establish Krishna consciousness on the basis of Shastra is the topmost devotee, topmost level devotee, and he can deliver the whole world. Yeah, so. A sign of advancement in Krishna consciousness, according to this description of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, means that one is able to describe to others, clarify to others the philosophy of Krishna consciousness on the basis of Shastra. Yeah. Is it for everyone to do this? Well, it may be that someone is very expert in Shastra, but they don't take the position of a teacher. That's also it's like Gaur-Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj. And we also find in Bhaktivinoda Thakur's writings, he describes about various bhajananandis who some of them were known to be very expert in Shastra, but they generally wouldn't discuss with others. They would, of course, the devotees would come and they would discuss with them, but they didn't like to engage in argument. Only if someone came really looking for a fight would they get into it. So one can be very advanced even without directly studying, and there are instances of that also, without studying the Shastra in great depth. When in such a case, then Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojata Janyatya Shuvairagyam Jnanam Chayada Haitukam. For someone who directly takes to devotional service with great faith, that may be the result of advancement in previous lives, so that when he comes in contact with great devotees, that immediately has great effect. Srila Prabhupada gave the example. It's a standard example of dry grass very quickly catches fire, whereas wet grass is very difficult to make. It's the same fire, but some grass will burn very easily and other grass not very easily. So there may be devotees who very quickly, straightforwardly, directly take to devotional service and come to the conclusion, which is to chant Hare Krishna and be absorbed in Krishna consciousness without making a very deep, direct study. But then again, we find, as in the case of Gaur-Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, as Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who is himself vastly learned in Shastra, he said that all the truths of the Vedas, they reside in one drop of dust from his lotus feet. For most of us, we're going to, and for general preaching in the world, we're going to have to study. We just can't expect that all that knowledge will come to us in that respect. And also we find that when Saraswati Thakur was living in Navadvip, he was called to give lectures. Gaur-Kishore wasn't called to give lectures. Gaur-Kishore would come and listen to the lectures. Incognito. So different services. Saraswati Thakur didn't think he was better than his guru because his guru was almost illiterate. He thought that whatever he'd studied greatly before approaching Gaur Kishore Das Babaji for initiation, but he felt that whatever he learned became activated by that initiation. He described that what he'd studied, he thought it was impractical. Thought that, well, no one can actually be like this. There's descriptions of pure devotional service. When he saw his guru, then he understood, yes, it's possible to live in this world and be on that level. It is possible. Anything else? Hare Krishna. Well, wait, just a little point there. We can say that about Srila Prabhupada also, that most devotees' faith in Krishna consciousness among his disciples came because of him. By seeing him, his Krishna consciousness, he transmitted that to others, and he gave others the confidence that they could also follow in his footsteps. He encouraged them that you can also come to the highest level. Then he taught them. He taught us, point by point, step by step. What is this philosophy? What is this understanding of Krishna consciousness? Otherwise it might seem like a fairy tale or a dream. Bishoy charya kobe shuddha hobe mon. When will I give up material desires for material enjoyment? When will my mind be pure? Seems almost impossible. And then that comes by Ar kobe nitai chande karuna hoibe samsara bhashana mo kobe tuchobe. That's possible by the mercy of Lord Nityananda. One will be able to give up desires for material enjoyment. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Shri Gaura Nitai ki jai. Bhagavad-gita as it is ki jai. Hare Krishna.